Hey guys, I'm Matt. I made this video, get it? Matt made it. And today we're talking about Cyberpunk 2077 and everything that we know so far about this game in anticipation of the Cyberpunk 2077 event coming up. This is going to be a video about kind of the main features and overview of Cyberpunk just to prep for the event coming up, because you know we're going to get more gameplay information. Anyway, let's get right into it. So, Cyberpunk 2077, it's a first-person RPG based on the tabletop game by Mike Pondsmith. It'll be released September 17th, 2020 on Xbox One, PS4, and PC. It has been in development for over 7 years. That's right, 7 years. The teaser trailer was released in 2013, so we've been waiting a long time for this game. I've been waiting a long time for this game. This game is made by CD Projekt Red, or CPR, and if you don't know who they are, I don't know why. They made one of the greatest games of all time, Witcher 3, so if that's anything to go off of, there's a lot of promise for Cyberpunk, and I cannot see it disappointing, knock on wood. Please don't pull a Death Stranding on me. So the game takes place in a gritty, cyber-modded future in Night City, in the free state of Northern California, right on the coast, and you live there as a mercenary trying to make it big. The main plot line revolves around tracking down and finding an implant that holds the key to immortality. Yeah, I could see how that would be useful. Fun fact, Night City was voted as the worst place to live in America. Coming as no surprise, the city was literally built entirely by corporations. There are numerous corporations in the game, one of them being Militech, which was shown in the gameplay video. The city will be completely open world, featuring no loading screens whatsoever. Totally seamless. Now, of course, I'm sure you're wondering about the size of Night City. Well, we got something here for you. The developers mentioned the city itself will be, quote-unquote, a little bit smaller than the Witcher 3 map, but way more dense. And the way they described this was that, so in The Witcher, you have a lot of wooded areas, because you know, there's like woods and shit and like medieval settings like that. But in Night City, imagine taking away those empty areas and cramming it all together, and you just have a lot more going on in a relatively smaller space. They also touched on verticality, but now with Cyberpunk, I'd expect to be traversing through and up buildings and skyscrapers and all sorts of cityscapes in this game. The city itself will be divided into 6 districts. They will vary from the corporation built areas that I mentioned before, like the city center, to crime-ridden areas like Pacifica that are controlled by gangs. And guess what? There's a lot of gangs in this game as well. As I'm making this video, there are 11 confirmed gangs within the game. To mention some, there are the Lizzies, the Maelstroms, Steel Dragons, and the Wraiths, who are known for taking off their victim's skin and making clothes from it. Did I mention the setting of this world's pretty dark? We got to see 2 of these gangs in the deep dive video and how rivalries could play out with you choosing to help one side. In a mission, you work for the Voodoo Boys and go after the gang called the Animals, who have moved into Pacifica. But before we get ahead of ourselves into gameplay, let's talk about the character that you'll play as. You'll play as V for Vendetta. No, I'm just kidding, it's just V. You are a mercenary for hire. You create this character right from the start of the game. We saw in a deep dive video that there are a ton of customization options when it comes to physical appearance, going as far as literally being able to customize your junk. But what's even more interesting about this is that you could pick key life events in the beginning of the game, and according to developers, this will actually change your starting point for your character. You'll all end up going down the same mercenary for hire kind of path, but I just think that's cool. This game is an RPG, so you'll be leveling up this character as you play. You get to start out with what seems like 25 points. You put it into stats like strength, constitution, reflexes, and the most important stat, cool. There's no class system in the game, but CPR mentioned that there are 3 kind of different archetypes. First mentioned is Solo, which is basically a straight up strength character that blasts and beats the shit out of everyone and everything in front of you. It sounds like a lot of fun. Or you could play as a Netrunner, which focuses on hacking equipment and cyberware of other characters that you come up against. Or you could play as Techie, which is tech-oriented. This was explained that it differs from the Netrunner in that they actually dabble with the hardware and the mechanics of things and machinery rather than the software itself. But Matt, what if I want to play as a combination of these? Well, guess what? You can. You can literally put any points into any skill that you want to. I really like this system. It's kind of what they did in The Witcher, and like games like Skyrim where you just level up based on what you do in the world. It's more fluid. I think it's more interesting. So I'm really glad Cyberpunk is implementing this kind of system. It literally just lets you play the way that you want to play. It also seems like you'll have a sort of hub location or a home base. In the gameplay reveal, you live in your apartment in Night City. In that, you'll store weapons, clothing, more importantly, you get laid. You can even check out the weather and messages on a little hub screen. You literally have an armory with all your weapons that you most likely gather through completing quests and stuff. There's also some katana swords hanging there, which is super badass. Might sound like a weeb, I'm just saying. Taking a look at the pistol, looks like we have some stats like recoil, spread, range, DPS being a few. Now these could change because they were from the gameplay reveal. You could also put on jackets, which could double as your armor. Gives you things like physical resistance, chemical resistance. It could also give you buffs like having your street cred level up faster. I will mention street cred later. One of the big features in the game, of course, is being able to cybernetically modify yourself. You'll go to vendors called Ripper Docs. You can have different cyberware installed by them, which include things like eyeball implants for scanning things and zoom modification, cyber optics to a hand plant that integrates with your eyes to give you a heads up display. So these Ripper Docs could be underground guys or legitimate doctors, and some will even upgrade you with some military grade stuff. So great. So now that we know about the character, what about the questing? So before I get into the questing, let me talk about the street cred system first. You see, there's actually two different types of experience in the game. Core XP, which you use to level up your abilities, and street cred, which is gained by doing various side missions in the game. And the more street cred you acquire, the more access you have to different vendors in the game, different missions, and people overall will become more aware of who you are and what kind of things you can do for them. Could be great for a potential criminal employer, just saying. However, there are of course drawbacks and consequences to this. Developers stated that the more street cred you have, the more of a target you could become. So the way I envision this is if you decide to ally with like a certain gang or company or corporation or whatever, you might become a target of like a rival gang or something because they know you're doing business with their competitors. And what about the side missions? So it seems like there's going to be around 75 street story side quests. Now I want to be clear, this is just a tier of a side quest, and they likened it to Geralt's Witcher contracts in The Witcher 3. These street stories will be quote-unquote handcrafted, as in they are an auto-generated fetch quest, so they'll each tell a story and allow you to explore the city and give you more information on how people live day to day in Night City. I think that's a really clever way for CPR to immerse the player more in Night City. And knowing CPR, I have no doubt that these will be great. The side quests in Witcher 3 and the Witcher contracts were honestly probably some of the best parts of the game, even more so than the main quest at times, so I'm really looking forward to it. Now as far as main quest goes, they operate in a way where they could branch out and go through different stories and you can meet different people, but everything that you do in them has a consequence. Every choice that you make, every dialogue decision, everything you say and do essentially could affect the outcome of a quest. And the decisions you make while you're doing main quests and side quests will affect the world around you constantly. In the deep dive, we saw some points where you can make split-second decisions, just like in The Witcher 3, like where you decide to throw a baby in an oven. It's kind of a long story. These dialogue choices will pop up and you'll have a limited amount of time to decide what to do. I'm so glad they're bringing this stuff back because these choices carry a lot of weight and you really don't have time to think about them, but they could literally change an entire quest or change the way that a quest is going while you're going through it. Speaking of dialogue, again, it looks like it's similar to Witcher, and it looks like it'll take place in real time, so you could walk away from characters as you're talking to them if you want to be like a real asshole or something. So traveling around this city, the city is going to be large, so you're obviously going to need a way to travel around. Travel will come in the way of cars and bikes. It seems like cars might have some kind of class system, like some will be armored, some will be luxury, and some will just be like main pedestrian cars. There's also a radio, which is really cool. There's an entire Cyberpunk radio, actually. There's an entire soundtrack coming with this game, which I think is pretty awesome. There was also mention recently of traveling by boat. However, it doesn't seem like boats will be controllable, kind of like they were in The Witcher. You will be able to swim, but they really didn't specify like which capacity, which I thought was strange. Also, there's going to be flying cars in the game, but you will not be able to pilot them. You might be seen on them in some kind of side quest or story mission, but you'll be on them for a brief time and you will not be able to control them. Fast travel is going to be in the game too, of course. However, as expected, the developers do not recommend this. And just knowing how The Witcher 3 operated, I'm sure that roads you travel and the roads that are less traveled, like between points, will be just like littered with things to do. And Night City being more, thick and filled with stuff to do, I expect that fast traveling will only take away from some of that, and you'll probably miss a lot of cooler missions. So I know that I will probably not be fast traveling that much, if at all. Hey, finally, let's talk about gameplay. There's so much to go on about, honestly. So I'm gonna get into companions, like the general flow of gameplay, and then finally the combat. So let's discuss companions first, alright? Okay, so we all know that Johnny Silverhand is being played by Reddit's favorite guy to circle jerk over, 100% wholesome Keanu Bernie Sanders Reeves himself. But Johnny Silverhand in the lore of Cyberpunk 2077 is, well, like, kinda dead. And in this game, he lives on this chip that's implanted inside your brain. Kinda reminds you of like Cortana. And I'm guessing, and this is just a hunch, but Johnny will be the one driving you to find the implant which has the key to immortality. That's just a theory. Okay. But anyway, along with Johnny Silverhand, you're gonna have some companions that follow you along through the missions. It's also shown that you'll be followed by this guy named Jackie. You have some banter with him throughout the gameplay video. I have to say, I really hate the overly snarky dialogue sometimes, like when V says, "I'm cleaner than at a convent." Like, literally no one talks like that. In addition to those two, you'll have other companions in the game that'll tag with you. You can't control them or anything, but they will join you on specific missions, and I'm sure they'll dictate the flow of some of the missions that they're in. It's also stated that they will sometimes offer quests to you as you grow a relationship, and speaking of relationships, you could also have sex with them depending on your orientation or if you piss them off a few quests ago. The general flow of gameplay will most likely fall around you questing and exploring the city. As I stated before, quests are handled in branching pathways. You get dialogue or action choices based on what you've done up to that point in the game or your background that you chose in the start of the game. The developers did mention that they aren't trying to penalize you for any choices that you make, as it would take away from the immersion. In other words, you won't be punished if you want to act like a total dick. Conversely, you won't be punished for acting nice. Basically, you do what the hell you want. But of course, there will be problems if you try to pull a gun on a character that's like way higher level than you. Speaking of questing, they also mentioned this item inspection feature. Now, this is really cool. It allows you to examine like any items that you could be carrying, like quest specific items that have to be examined or interacted with in order to get clues on where to go in the next quest. As much as I love RPGs, I really don't like the idea of having to run to a waypoint and just do whatever there and then run back and turn in the quest. The fact that you have to do some detective work is actually like really interesting to me, and the developers did hit on this. You will be using this inspection tool to find out where to go next, so I thought that was really interesting. So I mentioned levels before, and yes, there is a level system. You can see the numbers next to the characters' heads that indicates their level. I'm not sure what the level cap is, or if there is one. I know we keep bringing up The Witcher, but if that's any indication, then anyone with 2 question marks above the head is going to kick your ass. So combat looks really, really fun. We saw pistols, shotguns, assault rifles, and arm blades known as Mantis blades, which is an upgrade that you can get. Guns could be street modified. They could have alternate firing modes, both lethal, non-lethal. You could punch people in the throat. You could use them as human shields. You could hack into stuff to mess with other people, like where you could hack into this guy's smith machine setup and make it crush his neck. You can run up walls and actually stick into the walls with those Mantis blades. You can hack into actual people through quick hacking and mess with their guns and cause them to jam up. There's honestly so much stuff to do combat-wise, it's impossible to cover all in one video. Basically, there's a ton of varied combat. It also looks pretty visceral and gory, which is great. Really fits into the tone of the game. You could also take stims like reflex boosters. The reflex booster allows you to access a feature called Koreznikov. It's basically a slowdown time thing. Certain guns have upgrades like ricochet bullets. There's also things known as smart guns, which track your targets. Each weapon will have modules that can be modified, so you could have upgrades to suit your playstyle. There also seems to be boss battles, which is great. In the deep dive video, you fight against this disgustingly roided up leader of the group of animals. So she fights you with the hammer and then tries to hack into your systems. It's just cool things that could change up gameplay in the middle of a fight. Even at the end when you down them, you could choose whether or not to spare them or just straight up execute them. It's just another thing that I'm sure will have consequences like everything else in the game. There was also another boss battle in the gameplay reveal. You weren't able to decide whether or not to spare them or not, but you were able to use your cybernetic eye to find like a weak point, so that was pretty cool. Well, this video is kind of longer than I thought it was going to be. Anyway, I think I just gave a brief overview of everything that we know so far. So the Night City Wire event will be happening June 25th. I'm going to be doing a video on that whenever I get a chance to analyze it, so that video might be more of a deep dive into the game. So let me know in the comments what you guys are most excited for in Cyberpunk, or why you're not excited about it. Really hope this game doesn't disappoint me and pull a Death Stranding on me. Please, God, don't do that. But anyways, guys, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.
I love him.